But the great thing about working in the Oxford Vaccine Group is that there's a team who shoulders that pressure with you. And so I think although there are some moments which I'll talk about which were particularly difficult, I think there's a sort of shared spirit, particularly amongst the senior team, and Harv and Sarah here are part of that, where a lot of the huge pressures we had in managing the trials in such a difficult circumstance, as well as the external pressures of the media and so on. But I think being in a tight-knit group of people, all with the same goal, trying to work together, really spreads a lot of that load. I think that's the most important thing, is that resilience is something which some people have, but actually sharing some of that pressure makes a huge difference to that. And I think we probably did break some people who were less resilient. But I think overall that's the most important thing. But I think in some ways for me, there's a few aspects of pressure. One is that in a way what we were doing is, although it was busier and we were working much harder than normal, we were doing the stuff that we normally do in making vaccines. So the day-to-day activities were actually rather similar to what we normally do. And that's sort of what I was trying to describe about the experience of working here with the team in Kars as well as in other countries. It was the same experience. The main difference was when you look out the window, everyone is looking at you. And that's something which we've never experienced before. It's very hard to get people interested in vaccines normally. But during the pandemic, everyone had become a vaccine expert and was making a comment. And then I think there's this huge feeling of responsibility that we needed to, and this would have been in the first part of 2020, to respond to all of that commentary that was out there to make sure the narrative was the truth. And I think the moment for me was when the phase 1 results came out in July 2020, and the university started receiving 1,000 calls from journalists per hour, that we realized you cannot manage that degree of media attention. We're not celebrities, but you can imagine for the celebrities what it must be like. You cannot control the narrative when it's at that level. And I think that recognition, up to that point, I should say, I felt increasing stress about what was being said. But I think at one point we realized that you can't control that, and you just have to do your best to respond honestly and with integrity when you can. And there isn't more than that you can do. So that took some of the stress away from that. I felt very worried about that and lost sleep over it. The other thing I would say is that point you made about the pressure of getting the results and saving humanity in inverted commas. I don't think we saw it like that, because we're just doing the job of stuff that we do just as important as someone making food that we could all consume in the pandemic. All those things are just as important. But I think for me, one of the issues was everything that led to a delay was very worrying, because remember in 2020 globally, 10,000 people died every single day. So if we did something wrong that caused a delay, that meant that a few days go by, tens of thousands of people are dying. Whereas if you can get there more quickly, you can then save more lives. And I think that bit also, as 2020 went on and there were various hurdles we had to get over, there was that increasing feeling that maybe we're never going to get there. But again, I think that sense was very much shared. And one great advantage you have in a university that you don't have in industry is between just a small group of us, we could make those decisions to keep going and to solve problems. It's an industry, you've got to go up through multiple layers of management, and you can sometimes never make those choices. And when we now look back at what happened with the big pharmaceutical companies outside of China, the only one that was successful, that made large numbers of doses, was Pfizer. All of the others, you will know Merck, one of the biggest vaccine producers in the Western world, made no COVID vaccine. GSK made no COVID vaccine. Sanofi Pasteur made no COVID vaccine. Johnson & Johnson made a small number of doses, but have now closed their vaccine business because they decided it wasn't successful. So I think it's very difficult in the big pharmaceutical industry to keep things moving in a way that you can in a university. But I think the overall message is it's the people around you that make it possible to deal with stress. Would you agree with that? I think that's absolutely critical. And people trying to, when you're worried about things, being able to talk through the problems and have a sane discussion